You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm Johnny Groening.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're talking about the first episode of the first season of the live-action One Piece series, which just premiered on Netflix today as we record this. Now, it was not easy, at least for me, to hold back on watching more episodes, but we thought it'd be fun to give our general impressions of the show just based on the first episode, since that is the episode that most people in the world are going to be watching before deciding if the live action One Piece is worth binging for them. But before we go to that, Travis, I know every week you always are concerned about this. Where can people find us? We're a little bit like Zoro. We lose our way. We get lost. We're a bit more like Luffy in this episode. Luffy kind of gets lost, and our listeners tend to get lost. They're like, I don't know where John and Travis are. I'm scared. But they can find us, right?
They sure can. If they need to seek us out to let us know their thoughts or issue any kinds of corrections on our manga recaps, Lord knows sometimes we need that, they can get a hold of us a couple of different ways. First off, they can send us an email at rookiepirateRadio@gmail.com.
Slow down, Travis. I need to hear that at least 2 more times.
That's rookiepirateRadio@gmail.com.
Nice.
I'm not going to do it a second time.
I'll do it. RookiePirateRadio@gmail.com.
But I am happy to report that our Discord is back up and running. So folks are welcome to join that from the link in the show notes and join us in our One Piece channels. We have a spoilers channel and then just a general discussion channel. So if you haven't caught up on the whole series, you can still participate with us. But that's not all we do there. We talk about all kinds of things, anime and manga, but also all of the different parts of pop culture that we cover at InBetweenDrafts.com, from music to movies to games and more. So please come join us there. We'd love to have you.
You're doing such a great job at that. You've gotten so much better, and it's so smooth. It's so natural. And I'm glad you mentioned the One Piece manga because as many of you listening already know, Travis and I were mega fans of the One Piece manga. We recap the newest chapters every week they come out. That said, we're not going to spoil anything or talk about anything that happens after the East Blue Saga in the manga. So that's going to basically be the first season of this show. We haven't watched the other episodes, but we might kind of briefly mention things that happen into East Blue. So you're not getting like a totally spoiler-free blank slate kind of conversation here, but we're not going to be talking about stuff that happens way down the pipelines. You don't have to worry about like, okay, I'm only here for the show. We're going to do our best not to ruin your experience. That's the main thing, right? But we are going to talk about it from the perspective of people who know the East Blue Saga pretty well. So that is, I think, going to be our lane. If you're good with that, Travis?
Absolutely. My notes are pretty much exclusively within the confines of this episode. If you've watched this episode, should be good. Not going to ruin anything else for you.
Yeah. I mean, if we did talk about anything else in East Blue, it'd probably be toward the end, if anything else. So we should probably just go forth with our general impression. So let's set this up here. We have been waiting a long time for this live action adaptation of the most popular manga of all time. It's finally coming to light. So Travis, with all that hype, and as we set sail on what could be a brand new adventure for not just us, but a lot of people who are going to be experiencing Eiichiro Oda's epic saga for the first time. They're experiencing it as we speak. What did you think of this first episode titled Romance Dawn?
Yeah, it was pretty good, wasn't it? It was pretty good.
Yeah, it was good. It was. I watched it and I was like, I like this.
It was a strong pilot.
They did a good job. They did it in some cases. They did a great job.
I think so. Yeah, I think some of what we had expected in previous episodes played out more or less how we thought they would. Specifically with Luffy's flashback, kind of stretching that out a little bit, but. In general, I think even knowing what was going into it, there were moments where I genuinely was curious to see what was going to change. And there was one moment where for a hot second, I thought they were going to do something that there's no way they could have gotten away with. And that's the mark of a good show, is you can, as someone who's read the manga, been a big fan for a long time, as listeners of the show will know, to catch me off guard long enough for me to go, oh, is the show going to do this? Perfect. That's exactly what you need to be.
Yeah, because it's so interesting how, like, sometimes people think that an adaptation has to be beat for beat with what it's adapting. And in some cases, the anime is definitely more like that than the manga in some ways, because anime and manga can be so tightly, tied together, right? You can very easily like just kind of keep those two properties very faithful to one another and not experience a lot of like weirdness, because manga in a lot of ways is designed almost as like the story art for a TV show. But when you bring that stuff into live action, you run into all kinds of limitations, all kinds of realism issues, issues in terms of like we can't quite do it this way. And honestly, why should we? Because we're making an adaptation that is a drastically different medium at this point, totally different art style, totally different approach, totally different creative people behind it. Eiichiro Oda has been kind of overseeing this, but we should mention that this thing is being showrun by Matt Owens and Steven Maeda. And I think what they managed to do pretty well here, and I was worried because these are like Steven Maeda in particular is a guy, he's known for stuff like X-Files, CSI, things that you wouldn't quite look at and be like, he's ready for One Piece, you know what I mean? But I think what they have managed to accomplish here is they've made the right changes and they've kept the right stuff. They decided to move things around, but never, I think, at the sacrifice of the characters themselves and like what makes them them. They moved Nami, for example, into the first episode, which I think like the anime kind of did too, but it was very, I don't know, the Nami stuff was very muted. Like she's not really much of a presence at all until we get to the Buggy stuff, right? But in here, it's like, no, let's bring up the big three. And that is a huge change. It's a huge change to the way Zoro and Luffy kind of come together. But honestly, Travis, I don't know how you feel. I think that these were the right changes because it serves the show. And we already have the anime and manga for the other version of this. And I kind of like this interpretation. It's got energy and adventure. It's capturing the spirit, I think, of the story in the way that I was looking for.
Yeah, I think it gets the job done, especially with the character introductions. We get the gist of everybody pretty much out of the gate. And that's good. I think bringing Nami in, getting her paired off with Luffy, doing extended scenes together right from the jump is the correct narrative choice. That's really going to pay off in the long run for them, I'm sure. And it 100%. is something that the anime also did. They actually stole a couple of tricks from the anime adaptation that I noticed. The very beginning does not start with Romance Dawn, the manga chapter. It starts with the anime.
Which I think I predicted, right? Because I think my prediction was...
we talked about it. Yeah, you mentioned this.
I said that, like, if I know showrunners, they're going to do the same thing the anime did because the manga starts in a perfect way, right? And both of these things do start with Gold Roger's death. And by the way, speaking of the Gold Roger stuff, great opening scene. I didn't rewind it, but I almost kind of wondered, did I miss him ever say the words One Piece? Or did I just miss that? Did he say it?
No, he didn't say it, but he never said it. That's consistent.
Okay, that was something I was keeping an ear out for because I was like, "Oh, be careful!" You know what I mean? It's like
I do like that they added to his lines. They gave him the wealth, power, all that to go with it. I think that's a good bit. Since we're talking about it, I do also like that there's this moment where I guess there's this thing about early One Piece, especially as time goes on, where sometimes you just have to clarify things. It's just the reality of storytelling. This is happening in real time, right? But because they have hindsight to work with, this show allows even these small moments with Roger, because he doesn't get to be around, obviously, for very long, because they know more than Oda did when he drew that scene originally. They can give you a little bit of, oh yeah, no, he's doing this on purpose. He's saying the things he's saying with, intention, and he's going to tell, this unnamed military man that without any, that tells you stuff about Gold Roger as a person right from the jump, which is great. It's really leveraging the bulk of the material without actually giving any of the game away, which I think is just an excellent trick by the script writers there.
I think honestly, like, I don't have any major complaints here. I think that they have great talent. I think Emily Rudd as Nami really impressed me because going into this, I for sure knew that, like, Iñaki Godoy, I mean, he has just been inhabiting Monkey D. Luffy. I think that his play on the character It's just that it's playful, it's light, but he does have a little bit of that edge. He has a little bit like there was some gory stuff in this. Like character got sliced in half. Another character has like Alvida's.
Zoro sliced a guy in half. He bisected a dude.
One of my L's.
So cool.
One of my L's. I was all like hoity-toity about that's not Mr. Seven. The fandom has gone too far. That's just a buggy pirate. Y'all ridiculous. And that was Mr. Seven. Hats off to the fandom. That was one of my big misses. But no, what I was going to say before was that like I knew like I mean from all the material that we were going into, I was like it just seems like the casting here for Luffy and Zoro is spot on. Mackenyu is just unbelievably good in this, like just so much presence. But Emily Rudd is the one who impressed me the most because she just like I was starting to see this in some of the marketing material where like it seems like she's the biggest One Piece nerd. It's like between her and Mackenyu for me, but they both seem to be like nerdier about this stuff than you and me, and that would be saying something. And like she just like totally nails it. Like I think she nails like the charm of Nami without being like kind of weird about it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think with both of them. Being longtime fans is something that's actually helping rather than smothering their performance in this case. Again, a really hard thing to do, honestly. Zoro stood out to me in particular because Zoro is, I mean, he has plenty of lines, right? But he's usually more of a stoic character until it's time to be funny. I like quippy Zoro. I'm a fan of quippy Zoro. I don't even know if quippy is the right word. I put sassy in my notes. That might be more appropriate.
I could see some people being annoyed with like, this is a little bit too Sanji for my Zoro. I could see that. It didn't bother me, but it's a little bit there, isn't it?
If it was more than it was, maybe. But it's very clear that it's an affect. It's and this is something that this episode does very, very well. Is what it's really doing. Is it's showing you Luffy, Zoro, and Nami, and it's quickly showing them through Luffy, like where they're at and what they need to get past in order to see the world the way that he sees it. And for Zoro, he's putting up those little fronts. I loved his little number joke with flipping the bird. That's a great bit that that feels like a Zoro thing. That doesn't feel like a Sanji thing to me. Talking about the uniforms and stuff. Mackenyu is killing it 100%. I knew when I saw Knights of the Zodiac, I'm like, he's not really good in this role. But everything I'm seeing him doing here is screaming to me that he's going to absolutely nail Zoro. And sure enough, he did. And I think, being able to translate a little bit of that sarcastic energy, not necessarily disrespectful energy, but sarcasm. He's got good presence. I also like Nami's. She's not the same kind of like, they're not playing it like a femme fatale necessarily, which I think is a very good choice. Instead, it feels a bit more like she's almost like Aladdin in this to me. It's like an Aladdin type.
Street rat.
Exactly.
She's gonna break out into song any moment.
It's kind of the energy that comes off it, which is, I think, a great read of the character. And they're all doing an excellent job. I literally have no complaints about any speaking roles in this episode. Genuinely. I was
happy to see that they let Nami kick some butt in this, and that whole sequence where they're fighting in the square. Very well choreographed, very exciting. I mean, I think some people might watch it and be like, of course, Luffy's doing the rubber stuff at night on Alvida's ship, special effects being what they are. But then, they make up for it and then some when they're in the bright of day fighting Captain Morgan. And he actually kind of feels like a bigger threat. They do kind of change a little bit of like, I think they do want to make Luffy more of an underdog here, because really when you're reading the manga, he's like a one-man wrecking crew throughout East Blue Saga. I mean, he's just sort of like, he's way tougher than everybody. And that's part of the fun of watching that. And I think that they did have to kind of mess with that for this. They had to mess with that. They had to mess with like, Zoro kind of deciding to join the crew and stop being a pirate hunter. It's something that works for a gag manga and like how embellished it can be of like, in that he's like starving for days. In this, he's up there for what, like 30 minutes. It's like, it's not quite as like over the top about it. But I think one of the reasons that works to the show's favor is that it's just moving. And I think it needs to be that, because I think people's patience would wear thin if we just had to slow the heck down. If there was one thing that I wish we did slow the heck down on and give a little bit more, I am a little bummed about the Kobe stuff, the way that resolves, because that is such a great moment from Shell's Town when the real departure between Kobe and Luffy. The way the show handles it is just kind of generic. And I'm kind of hopeful that we are going to get more Kobe and Helmeppo for the rest of this. People who've already binged the first season know whether or not that's going to be the case. But I think that based on what we know, this could not just be it for Kobe. I mean, we could have more fun stuff going on with that character, right?
Given the final scene, not the final scene, but the first like setup scene, the vibe that I get is that this is the thing that is going to change the most, actually. I haven't seen the rest. It's not a spoiler, everybody. I don't know exactly how this is going to play out, but I feel like we're going to get these moments, with Kobe, but also with the Marines in general. I think we're going to spend more time with them as a faction and really dig into kind of their shades of gray, which the show does make a point of being like, sit Luffy down and have Kobe talk about this for a minute so that it's, clearly spelt out for everybody what we're dealing with here.
I do like that they use the map to the Grand Line as a MacGuffin. I like how that's going to connect to the buggy stuff, which the buggy stuff, I was happy that they are setting things up well. They're seeding things in for people who are new to this. So like Captain Kuro gets brought up. It's revealed here that like Captain Morgan apparently was the one who captured the Black Cat or defeated the Black Cat pirate. So that's a nice little tease to stuff that's going to come. Egg on my face, more L's from John, who thought that they were just going to skew all the Sierra Village stuff. But I still... We'll see. We'll see if the Sierra Village is still going to be a thing in the way we recognize it. But the way the episode ends with the buggy stuff and how that's going to come together, I think it's great. They're making Buggy look like a legit threat. The bounty like flare thing where like the poster comes up. It's so silly, but in a way that matches, I think, the spirit of the tone, of the story. I think it's really fun stuff. And also, did they need a map to the Grand Line, or did they just need a map to Logtown? That was something that was kind of throwing me off a little bit. I was like, well, don't they know that Logtown is where Grand Line starts, Travis? Like, don't they just...
So I had an issue with this too. I think this is an anime thing, actually, because a map does play a factor in these first few arcs, not from Shell's Town, but from Buggy specifically. So I think that's what it's a holdover for. I do feel like it's weird because when they call the Bulldog ship, is what I'm going to call it for the purposes of this episode, when they call that ship on the snail and explain to Garp the situation, at first, my first takeaway during that scene with the way that it was being set was that they didn't actually steal a map. I thought that safe had something else in it entirely. I couldn't tell you what that was. It piqued my interest. I was like, did they accidentally steal something else? And then, he goes, oh, a map was stolen. And again, this is a thing that I expect to pay off later, so I won't go too much more into that. But then also the fact that weird.
The fact that it's somebody in a straw hat. I think that is the thing that has...
That's the thing that's supposed to have the cadence. And I don't want to dig too much into that because I think you and I both know why. I do want to talk about, though, since in that same scene and also with the Mr. Seven stuff, how do you feel about them seeding things that are definitely not going to be in this season?
Yeah. There's a lot of mention of Baroque Works, and I think it's smart because it's how you market the next season, right? Because you can be like, you can mention things or kind of hint at things by the time that they're going to show trailers, and because I do think they'll do at least another season. I don't know how much, if they could possibly do after that, but we'll see. But I definitely could see them be like, oh yeah, we can actually make this happen, and we could actually bring some hype and some like, oh man, the Baroque work stuff. Like I know what that is, and that's going to get me excited for another season if I'm totally new to this. That said, Travis, I want to bring up the pacing of this because they fit so much into this first episode. It's about an hour long. They fit all the Alvida stuff. They fit about half of Romance Dawn, the Shanks backstory. They teased a lot of things like Zoro's backstory. Not much of Nami, but like enough to kind of like ease through the buggy stuff, and we get through so much of it. We get all the way through Shellstown. We've got them on this like little makeshift ship. Do you think that because I think Baroque Works, Alabasta, all of that stuff, I know we're not talking about stuff past East Blue, but I know when we talked about the trailer, I just think that like second season's got to be, it could totally be more than just Alabasta. That's all I'm saying. Maybe not. Maybe I'm being a little bit, you really think they're going to do like Little Garden and Whiskey Peak and more than just like one episode? If they do it at all.
I mean, if the episode count is the same, I would say that, yeah, if a prospective season 2 would be Alabasta as a saga. But to the same point, you think about the Alvida stuff in Shellstown, and even really the buggy stuff. Those arcs are very light. It's still very introductory. We're doing our first few chapters in Jump here, so we're trying to make sure we secure our serialization for a long time. We need those early volume sales. So there's not nearly as much meat on the bones to begin with, if we're being entirely honest, until about halfway through the buggy stuff. So honestly, it doesn't shock me too much that it was kind of like, let's get through this, put it together so that we can get through what we need to get these certain people in the spots we need to. It's very set up, but I think that it happens in an organic enough way. It makes a lot of sense for these three to kind of naturally stumble upon each other based on their locations and what they were already doing. That all kind of flows organically. I like that. Luffy being in the barrel, getting pulled on the Alvida ship, there's a reason it works. That all flows pretty naturally, and I would much rather them get over it than try to pad it out with something. We don't really need Alvida standing around strutting for too long. Personally, as somebody who's criticized some of the fat jokes in One Piece before, frankly, I'm glad that they don't dwell on it. I'm glad that it just seems like we're just moving past that entirely. Nobody really insults her appearance at all. I think that's a good improvement.
Luffy kind of says sea cow, but
Yeah, I don't think it's meant as he doesn't seem to like deliver it as like a monster rather than like a physical attribute. So I'll take it. I'll take whatever I can get, basically. So we breeze through that stuff because it's really lighthearted intro stuff anyway. It's an episode and a half of the anime too, which at Toei pace is about as fast as anything is ever going to be.
Very true. Very true. I just wanted to mention too, I am loving the production design like so much. The ships, the look and feel, the way that like they're blending the sort of like contemporary, like modern day technology with the fantasy technology. Yes, we got our Den Den Mushi. We got our transponder snail. That's all I wanted to see in this episode. We saw it twice, and I was hyped both times. But like just little things of like they go to a bar, and like the bar has some like neon, and it's like it's kind of got this like really fun mix of, yes, your Pirates of the Caribbean kind of setting. That's the whole basis of the Pirates, but that's kind of mixed with like almost like Fallout, like a little bit of like Fallout New Vegas, like a little bit of a chef's kiss of like Final Fantasy VII, and mixed with like a little bit of Pokemon Coliseum. It's just such a fun kind of vibe. Like I think I mentioned this when we were talking about the trailers. It really does sort of feel like a theme park kind of come to life. And, because when we were looking at like the stuff that we're going to see with the Arlong and like the games and the carnival, like it looks like stuff that like you could see at like Netflix land or something like that. God help us if that ever exists someday. I do not want to go to Netflix land. I will go, but there would be like here's Stranger Things land. Here's the area with Squid Game. And there's One Piece, that would be a nightmare. I'd go.
I think my favorite, I love your honesty there. I think the thing that I like the most about the production design, though, is the costumes, which, frankly speaking, look a lot better. They're a lot better than the trailers did them justice, I think.
Nami's wig actually didn't make me upset.
Yeah, I think having those last little bit of post-production tweaks helped a lot. They're accurate, but at the same time, they're not compromising the atmosphere or the actors. Luffy's clothes are very ill-fitting, but they're not ill-fitting in a way that like doesn't Inaki any like disservice, right? He fits that character right. It makes sense that he's a little disheveled, right? It makes sense that Zoro's got kind of dirt all over him. He looks like he hasn't showered in a couple of days, because we know what he's been doing. The show showed us what he was doing. And when they take the moment where he finally whips out the bandana and puts it on, and it's just a simple black bandana, but frankly speaking, it was perfect. It was a perfect moment. It's exactly what we want to see. And yeah, all of the costumes really do. I know there was concerns about like Shanks wearing the straw hat in the flashbacks. None of that. Don't see any of it. No problems.
Disagree.
Really?
I did not like any of the backstory stuff that much. I think Ben Beckman, for some reason, looks like a divorced dad, which, like, it's Ben Beckman. Why does he look like he only gets custody of his kids on the weekend? I don't know. And LaRue, perfect to every detail. But, like, Shanks, to me, he just kind of looks a bit off. Like, it's the costume, and it's the guy's face, and it's the red hair and the straw hat. It looks like a costume to me. It looks like Party City. Like, I'm at a Halloween party, and hey, Frank, you showed up as Shanks. Frank Shanks, that's funny. I did not buy that. And I think it sticks out to me more because, like, everybody else was pretty much spot on.
Yeah, I don't know. I was not seeing that, really. I think he was embodying it pretty well, actually. Just gonna respectfully disagree with you there. But also, I think the show is playing Shanks a little bit soft right now. Not just for the sake of like Luffy's backstory, and we know how that plays out, but just like at the risk of risking anything, it's like they're wanting to make the truth of what Shanks is about a little bit more secretive than the manga even did. Presumably because they're expecting him to kind of come off cool because Luffy thinks he's cool. So maybe we'll see some changes as the season goes on to that.
Young Luffy was cool. I thought that he did a great job, and I will say, I didn't love the this season on One Piece at the end. I would say, like, if you haven't seen the whole episode yet, or you didn't watch it, like, good, because I think it gives away too much. Like, not for you and me, but like, I don't know, it kind of cuts the momentum a lot, because you end with this whole thing with like Buggy kind of being teased, Garp being teased, and then this season on One Piece. None of that matters. Here's a lot of other stuff. I'm like, whoa, hold on. Like,
what's that, John? What's that, John? The binge dump release model throws off the natural progression of tension and story building.
It really does. And I would say, and honestly, if you skipped the credits, please go back. The credits are really good. Like, just seeing like the map and everything, and being able, it's a great vibe. They did a great job with it. I hate it when credits are just like, you have to hit a button just to watch the credits. Come on. And I wouldn't say that about every show. I don't like the credits on Ahsoka. Those were kind of whatever. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. I mean, it's not like a 10 out of 10. We're not saying that. I mean, it's just, I think some of the effects are still pretty shoddy, but I mean, this thing is just, it's got crowd pleaser energy. It's got the world building and character lore that I think we would hope it would have. And it just has all these fun little Easter eggs for fans. I mean, probably the biggest one, Bink Sake. We won't explain it, but there's something that happens in here referring to like a song that I genuinely, Travis, I was just like, I was doing the Leonardo DiCaprio thing, pointing at the screen. It was amazing.
I literally, I was watching it and then I went, oh, wait, and like turned it up and like leaned into the television just to do it. And I was watching it with my spouse. And so she's also caught up on everything. And so she goes, oh, it is, like, we kind of had a little tender moment over this. It's a fun song, and it's one of those things where Oda again had to get there, had to go back, put it in, make it explain in the story. Here it's just gonna feel way more natural as a result of it. It's a perfect pirate shanty song. I hope we hear it again. I would love to get a vocalist on it. That would be 10 out of 10 for me.
Do you like the rest of the music, like the score? I
do, actually. I know they got one of the Witcher composers on it, so that
yeah, the composers are
why not replicate success there?
Yes, the composer you're referring to, there's two of them. Sonia Belasova is the Witcher one, and also Giona Ostinelli, who is Swiss Italian. I think she worked on. I'd have to look it up, but I don't think she worked on Witcher. But oh no, she did toss a coin to your Witcher. So sorry.
Yeah. So don't mess with success. But I do think that this is different from the Witcher score, which is appreciated. I think the main theme is excellent. It's already stuck in my head. It has a very good Pirates of the Caribbean score energy to it, but the character themes are very distinct and aren't borrowing from that. I love Nami's in particular. Early, in the when they're in the military base, and she gets an actual action scene, and it cuts her theme directly into what's happening, and it's a great theme for her. It's not what I would have expected necessarily. None of this music is kind of the same peppy energy you see in the anime, for example, but I do think it's very appropriate for the atmosphere of the show.
Totally agree. I really love the fight scenes here. And, there's a lot of action, even in the Logtown stuff at the very beginning, when it kind of looks like we have like revolutionaries doing certain stuff, like kind of and pirates, and we get some cameos and everything. It's just, there's a lot of like frenetic action. The big pirate battle at the beginning with Alvida. And we've already talked a little bit about like Mackenyu and Luffy just having like, all these action beats. Do you think that I don't know, do you think that they're going to be able to keep this up once we start getting into the buggy stuff, once we start getting into Arlong? Like, things are going to be like very tricky to pull off in terms of the action. Here, I think it's a little bit easier because you have not Garp, you have Captain Morgan, Axe Hand Morgan. It could be a little bit more simple. But it seemed to me like they were paying less attention to like really, I guess like with Luffy, like he even has like the joke of like, oh yeah, everybody says their finishing moves or whatever, and they're kind of playing it off like there's not a lot of tension. There's not a lot of like, I think that these characters are in real danger, but I do think it's like, oh, this is a challenge that they have to face. How are you feeling about the stakes in that way?
I mean, I'm fine with this not having stakes. Again, it's an introductory thing. You really want to try to understand and appreciate Luffy, and seeing him take an L, or have a really difficult fight, I don't think really endears him right out of the gate. I do think that the effects are going to be a problem. Not necessarily like they're going to ruin the show or anything like that. It's a television show. I'm setting my expectations pretty accordingly here. But some of the gum stuff still isn't working for me. The closer, easier stuff, like when he pulls on his cheek, for example, that's really good. You can tell that took, that was a lot. But when he does things like dodge Alvida and does like the kind of,
it's weird. It's slow.
It's a little bit like, you can tell the transition happened. And again, I felt this way from the moment they said they were going to try to do One Piece in live action. I don't think you're ever going to get to a point where that's going to look seamless. It's just not. So I don't know about like stakes in the way of like them being able to depict them. I think it's going to be fine, because literally there are going to be multiple moments here very soon where Luffy will be having these fights near bodies of water, and that immediately opens up a stake. Notice that the first episode doesn't actually make the connection between Luffy not being able to swim and Luffy eating a devil fruit. I think that will come up as a thing later to become a tension point. That's, again, kind of clever pacing for the sake of new audiences. I do think, too, that the fact that the violence is a little bit more ticked up than we expected also helps. I saw Zoro bisect a man today. That was pretty cool. That was very unexpected. To the point where when he catches Helmeppo in his room with the Wado Ichimonji, and he's like, oh, I've got a better idea than killing you. For literally 15 seconds, I thought to myself, is he gonna, because Helmeppo is naked in the scene. I'm like, is he gonna remove an appendage? Are they gonna be able to do that? I genuinely thought that maybe they were going to do that. And then thankfully before he showed back up, as the fight was going on, I literally said out loud, oh wait, he's just gonna cut his hair into the bowl cut, isn't he? Oh, shame. But
it was great.
But for a moment, I really felt like that was on the table. So I don't know. I think we'll find a way to stakes. But I don't think too that like going so hard that like we need to constantly have this threat. I feel like that takes away from the fun that is definitely supposed to be the center of this. It is the very center of Luffy for sure. And can I just say that the way that Inaki is portraying Luffy is even better than I expected.
It really is.
The thing that really told me that this was going to be something special. So when he's sitting there in the dinghy with Kobe, and he tells him to tell him his dream, and he's like, "Oh, it's stupid," and he slaps him in the face, and he's like, "No, don't be stupid. Tell me." And he sits there, and so Kobe starts talking about being a Marine, and Inaki is just sitting there, and he's beaming. He's literally absorbing the energy of seeing another person talk about what they want to do with their life.
Yeah,
and that's so special. That's like, I don't think
that's
they've ever
Luffy.
really. It is Luffy, but I don't think it's ever been depicted in this way, where it lingers on him, and you actually get to see him, like, see the thought process, and kind of the joy that it inadvertently gives him to see somebody do it. And then they replicate that over and over again. He asks Zoro, "Hey, what do you want to do?" He's not asking people to join his crew right away. He's asking them, "What do you want to do?" and trying to figure out how his plans can help them get there. It's a lot more straightforward than the manga for sure, but again, for the purposes of adaptation, I think it's a really, really good change that is going to make this kid instantly endearing to people. And I also love, on that note, that Zoro and Nami kind of being in where they're at right now is framed more as an issue of capitalism. Like, Nami's literally like, "I had to survive. I had to eat." Zoro is actually collecting on a bounty, which we've never seen him do. It's not played for a joke. It's played for something that I think is going to be way more relevant to the audience that's going to be watching this, and again, seeing them kind of break down those barriers and tell Luffy what they want to do, and him just kind of like feedback looping on that with them, and like trying to encourage them into it. That's so good. That's the real core of the show. And I think the threats to those dreams will be the real stakes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because we go to a place called Sixus Island. This is where we have the whole scene where Zoro fights Mr. Seven, and it's really, really great. It's brief, but it's a cool action scene. Did you know what this island was when you watched it?
No, but you're going to tell me it's something I should have recognized.
No, it's not. No, because I didn't know what it was. I was like, Sixus Island, I don't know. So apparently, I had to look this up. It is from the Ace novels, which we won't give away who Ace is or anything like that for newbies, but and I haven't read the Ace novels, but I did read one of them, actually. That's not true. But there is an Ace novel that's kind of going into a character named Deuce, and they're stranded on an island, and it's Sixus Island. And the manga kind of references this, but it didn't name the island. So that's why it's a bit of a deep cut. No lie, which I thought it was kind of cool. It's a sign that they are sort of like taking things from everywhere. SBSs, things that were just like throwaway, like Mr. Seven was an SBS thing, right? I love that because, and we already mentioned the Bing Sake thing. It really does sort of feel like this adaptation is in the hands of people who understand this story and want to tell a new story based out of it, without, not trampling on what Oda has built already, but expanding it and doing those things that you're talking about, having those Luffy moments that are a little bit, deeper in their own ways, while sort of like, respecting that, like, the manga is the manga, the anime is the anime. Those things have their strengths, and the way that they present Luffy, for example, is one of them. He's a very comedic character, and he's a little bit of like a goofball. In this, he has a little bit more agency. We don't just sort of have him like bluffing around and just kind of like waltzing right up to Zoro as much. He gets lost. He kind of like wanders the base. He's a little bit more like, I got to get the map. I got to go do the thing. See? And that could go into some unfavorable territory later, but it's doing what TV shows do. And I'm glad for that because it has that structure. It has that formula. It's built in a way for One Piece newbies, for normies, for people who are not weebs like the two of us, to embrace this. And this kind of meets people where they're at. And Travis, I'm not saying that this is going to be a gateway drug for people to join the movement that is Rookie Pirate Radio, but it could be, for all we know. And so that's the thing that I'm praying, every day for, to Oda, of course.
Yeah, and what a win for him. I'm so glad he got to see this now and not in like 20 years.
Seriously. I mean, I'm so glad that, because he said so many times, right? This was one of his dreams, for One Piece to reach this audience. Because yes, it's the most popular manga of all time. Yes, it's one of the most successful anime. but it's been going on since 1997. I think that, yeah, we can all agree that One Piece has always had a ceiling in terms of who the anime and the manga can reach. And it's a high ceiling. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions of people, but this has the opportunity to go even further. And that to me is the exciting thing. It's also exciting that people are going to watch this and they're going to fall in love with this series the way that a lot of us fell in love, not with the manga first, but with the 4Kids dub. You know what I mean? And like, there is something so inherent about this story that like you can approach it even in imperfect adaptations, but really like click with the stuff that gets preserved, and then of course your interest in it can evolve from there. And that's happened for so many people, and I'm excited to see it happen for so many other people moving forward. Now, we're saying all this, and Travis, what if we watch episode 2 and we're just like, oh no, that was a fluke, episode 1 was a fluke, the rest of it garbage, trash?
I mean, it will be a damn shame. it would be a terrible shame. I do feel a lot better going into this. There is literally only one thing that really made me kind of wince. Really,
here we
made
go.
Me go, I didn't like that. And it's a nitpicky thing. But when they're facing Captain Morgan, and that's about to start, and they do like the 4-frame cross panel thing that looks like it was taken right out of Tomorrow Studios' Cowboy Bebop adaptation. Do not make me think of Cowboy Bebop while watching this. You managed to go the whole show without making me think about Cowboy Bebop. You should have stuck with that plan. So I'm hoping we get less of those decisions going forward. It was only one, so it's hard to hold it against it. If it ends up sucking, though, I really wonder. I really wonder if it matters, because I mean, I'm going to be real with you. There's a lot of adaptations of stuff that I like, that people who know the source material don't like, and vice versa. It doesn't necessarily invalidate anything, right? This could be a totally average Netflix production and still have tons of fans and still be incredibly successful. And subsequently, that's good for One Piece. I think that's good for us. I think it's good for everybody who does love this story, because it keeps that story alive, and it will, draw people to the original material. I think more so than even like MCU stuff or anything like that. I think this actually has the ability to convert people, and so even if it's mid, I think that it would be fine. As long as it's not a complete disaster, I think that there is enough here on the table just from the characters and the casting that like Tumblr fans and what's left of TV, Twitter, they're going to take this and they're going to run with it. But that all being said, I don't think that's going to happen. I think we've got something stronger than that on our hands. Not perfect necessarily, but let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. Getting an anime adaptation right is effectively black magic, just like making a manga in the first place. So to even get it in a state where it's like, that's pretty good, it's a bar that is, depending on who you ask, has never been cleared. And to see it with one of the strongest pieces of media it could be, it's kind of an Iron Man moment. Like, we could be on a cusp now. Like, for example, Netflix is not going to be able to air this, and if it turns out to be a hit, I'm going to finish the season this weekend. The review will be on In Between Drafts as soon as I can get it, I promise. But if this turns out to be a Netflix hit, if this turns out to be a Wednesday level smash hit or a Stranger Things smash hit, Netflix is not going to be allowed to get away with putting that Yu Yu Hakusho adaptation up.
Demon Slayer, Naruto, Bleach, it'll never end. But I mean, we know that there are some already in production, and those productions are going to have to level up, which is probably going to be harder thanks to the strikes. So maybe figure that out, guys. But anyway, I think raising that bar is the correct thing to do here, even if at the end of the day it's not a perfect situation and the strikes create a situation where we never get a season 2 and this was just a one-off kind of, it would have been great to see the rest of it, it ended kind of flat or something, anything like that. I think that rising tide of just like, this can happen. If you can adapt One Piece competently
to say nothing of actually pretty well, there's practically nothing you can't do. And I think this will open the door to see a lot of these stories that are written off by a lot of Western audiences as just that Japanimation stuff as genuinely quality stories, which they are. Many of them are, and they deserve to be told.
We're
But
moving
don't
toward
make Akira. Please don't make Akira.
I know. But no, I mean, we're moving toward, if we're not already there, that I think that breaking point where the interest in Eastern animation and anime, and it's reached a fever point where it's only exploded in popularity in the West. There are a lot of more people growing up on anime than there were when we were kids, because we grew up on it, yeah. But now it's like, it is ubiquitous. You find anime fans all over the internet in America, the UK, people who are just like obsessed. And like the accessibility to anime is not like it once was. We're not like, renting, VHS copies of Dragon Ball anymore. Like it's not necessary. We have YouTube. Honestly, the first video I ever watched on YouTube was, funny enough, a One Piece episode because I wanted to watch it. That, and I watched Immortal Grand Prix, the original one, not the Toonami, like it was like a Toonami like one-off. I don't know if you even know what I'm talking about, but do you remember IGPX? Was that ever okay? That's fair enough.
I'm familiar with it.
There was like a legit series they did. It wasn't that great. There was like a one-off kind of thing where it was just a few short episodes. Every episode was like 5 minutes or something. It was just Immortal Grand Prix, and it was way better. It was really good animation, but it was like the first like Toonami original, I think, and you could only watch it on YouTube, and that's where I was watching it on YouTube. But nowadays we have Crunchyroll, we have High Dive. Netflix has tons of anime. It's just a different story, and Hollywood's going to mine the crap out of this stuff. And a lot of it's going to suck, but a lot of it could be great. So we can just sort of look forward to the great stuff. That's basically all I had. And we can, we're going to talk about chapter 1091 in terms of the manga pretty shortly once that drops on Sunday. And I'm going to go off and I'm going to binge the rest of this season. And I think we're going to do we're going to have another episode talking about live action. And I think we're going to talk about the whole thing. We had a couple ideas, like maybe bringing on a guest, which would be really cool.
We're going to have our editor of our TV section join us, who has never watched or consumed anything One Piece related and isn't an anime watcher either. So this will be very interesting.
Yeah. I just hope that she doesn't feel, a little bit like surrounded. You know what I mean? I'm just like, okay, guys.
Y'all better make her feel welcome.
The rookiest of rookie pirates. Yeah, and then we'll get on that. And then you and I will probably have tons of offline conversations about my pirate novel and how it has nothing to do with this. But I just feel like it's a great time to love pirates. And I'm like, if only I was releasing this pirate novel now at the peak of live action One Piece. Oh, well.
Save it for season 2.
Yeah. I
take
can't.
The extra time.
That could be years from now. We'll get there. Anything else you wanted to bring up, Travis, before we say goodbye?
The thing that I would say to this is to the very enfranchised, because I saw something today on TikTok.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I have a TikTok, and I sent this to you because I found it very funny, but you made a pretty poignant point about it. There are going to be a lot of people entering into this space, and they're going to be fans. They're going to be people who have spent the past 15 years trained by streaming media and cinematic universes to theorize and fan speculate and everything, just like we have been doing for this series for 20 plus years. And I think it would be best if we take it easy on them.
Give them a break. Don't be mean. Yeah. Don't be a bully.
Yeah, and I won't even tell people what I saw because I do not want to ruin it for anybody. But please, let them have their fun, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Please don't push up your glasses and go, actually, and pull out SBS, 53 and correct them. Let them.
Yeah.
That's not what Oda would want you to do.
No,
Let's be honest.
We were in that position 20 years ago. Like we were, it's not something you did that's so amazing. You just kept. You
Every
got here
2
first.
chapters.
That's so impressive. Like, it's not. You didn't do anything. It reminds me of the Christian Harloff quote. He's like, I've been busting my ass as a Star Wars fan for years. Like, you've been doing nothing but enjoying a piece of fiction. Relax. And if other people are enjoying it, you don't have to be condescending. It's how I remember feeling that way when I first got into A Song of Ice and Fire, because I was late to watching the Game of Thrones show. I hadn't read the books, and then I was like watching the show and I was enjoying it. But you had all of these like people who were like, the books. You haven't read the books, you loser. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't read the books. Calm down. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't need this energy. Like, you go over in your little zone. You can talk to the book people. Like, I just watched the show, and now eventually I read the books, and then I did the same thing. No, I didn't do the same thing.
No, I mean, it's. I mean, that's what I mean when I say this show has the potential to convert people. Is I think they will be interested in maybe engaging with it. And personally, if you were to ask me, you sat down, you had an honest conversation with me, and say, "What's the best way to enjoy the story?" And I would tell you 100 times. I've done it on this podcast. The way to do it is the manga, not because it's a purist, but I think it's because it's the least compromised version of the story. I've had plenty of issues with the anime, for example.
It's also the most efficient.
It is.
And the cheapest.
And also that. I mean, there's plenty of reasons to do it, but it's not going to be for everybody. It's not to their taste. And again, I think it would be best for everyone's experience, whether the rest of the show is good, bad, whatever. If people end up liking it and they can take something away from it and be inspired, maybe Luffy, encourages them in a way, makes them smile, then it has done its job as outlined within the mission statement of the series, honestly. So let's all, let's not make donut jokes. Let's not, hint at things that they don't know is coming. Let's definitely not bully them. Let the Tumblr shipping begin. Let the, it's all going to happen.
I've already seen the Luffy and Nami. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to speed. They are going to speed run 25 years worth of fandom. They are
for me, it's nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's like, I remember those days, Travis, the early 2000s, when we had the 4Kids dub and everybody on the playground was just like, no, Nami's going to end up with Zoro. And we're just like, we didn't know. We were kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Little babies.
And they're kind of like that now. And the best thing that I think we could do is really try to make sure that they get to experience the surprises like we do.
Yes.
Because even today, every couple of chapters, we learn something new that completely upends our understanding as well. And that's the fun. That's the
what
fun
I love,
part of this.
Because people are going to watch this and they're going to be like, I got to know what the One Piece is. Oh, okay, I'll watch the anime, fine. And then they'll watch the anime and be like, I love this. I'm going to read the manga. I'll read the manga, fine. But I want to hear 2 people talk about the manga whenever we have a new chapter. I'm on chapter 1090, whatever. And then they find Rookie Pirate Radio. That's the plan.
That's the master plan. Just completely, it is entire. Everything I just said about being kind to everybody and everything, completely self-serving. Absolutely,
Captain Kuro, more like Captain John of the Thousand Plans. When the John's treasure of One Piece is getting people to listen to this podcast.
Hooey.
I really just dug that out of nothing there. We'll be back pretty soon. I was going to say next week, but no, matter of days. We'll be back to talk about chapter 1091 for all of you manga folks. And look, if you like the new series, if you don't like it, if you're just like, John, Travis, I got to say, I'm not on the same page. I didn't love this. That's fine too. We want to hear from you. We're on the Discord. We're on the, what is the email again? Dang it, I forgot.
I got you. It's rookiepirateradio@gmail.com.
Thanks, Travis. That was a close one. But of course, they can find the link to the Discord, which is even better in the show notes. We'll be back. And hey, if you're, I got to go. Travis, I got to get out of here. I got to binge the rest of this season. I'll see you later.
Yeah, same here.
All right, bye.